All right. Good morning. Welcome to the fifth lesson of Decoding Talmud. You're becoming heavy-duty Talmudists, and we're going to try to delve into it today without all the background presentations, go straight into the Gemara itself, and we're going to explore another specific section of the Gemara. First, let's begin with okay. Let's make a blessing on the Torah. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Let's go straight. Brian, you'll sit over here. I want to pair you guys up, so I think we have peers here, sort of. Okay. Okay. Lesson number 5. What page? And we're not going to follow the exact 171. Let's begin with, as we've seen in the past, and as we're going to see today again, the unique style of the Gemara of a Talmud is that we have to put our minds to it. It doesn't come necessarily easy. It's not a casual read. It engages us. It's sometimes pretty difficult and challenging, the back and the forth, and the back and the forth. And that's the style of the Gemara logic. They say a story, you may have heard it, a story of a man comes to the rabbi and says, I want to study Talmud. So he says, why do you want to study Talmud? Do you know how to read Aramaic? He said, no. Do you know how to read Hebrew? I don't know Hebrew. So he says, why do you want to study Talmud? He says, look, I graduated at Harvard and did my PhD in Columbia. Now I want to know a little bit Jewish logic. He says, I don't know if you could really study. I don't know if you're ready for it. He says, try me, maybe. So you know what? Let me give you a few scenarios and let me test you to see if you know how to study, if you'll get the logic of a Talmud. Famous story, you may have heard it. And he says, okay, so there's two burglars come into a house through a chimney. They come down the chimney. One of them face is very dirty. One is clean faced. Which one is going to wash their face? The guy answers, obviously, the guy whose face is dirty. He says, you'll never get the Talmud. You'll never get to study Talmud. What are you talking about? The guy whose face is dirty sees his friend and his face is clean. So he thinks his face is clean. So he never washes, so he won't wash his face. Okay. Okay, you know what? Try me again. Give me another question. Okay, I'll give you another question. 2 burglars come down the chimney and they come down to the house and one's clean and one face is clean and one is not clean. One is dirty. Which one is going to wash their hand? Says, we just decided the guy whose face is clean. Says, you'll never understand Talmud. Well, why should the guy whose face is clean sees that the other guy is, the guy whose face is dirty sees the other guy washing his face. So he also goes and washes his face. So both of them wash their face. Okay, fine. I hear that. So he says, okay, go, give me another question. Okay. 2 burglars come down the chimney. One face is clean and one face is dirty. Who's going to wash their face? So we just said both of them are going to wash their face. You'll never study Talmud. You'll never get it. None of them will wash their face because the guy whose face is dirty sees the guy whose face is clean is not washing his face. So he's not. So both of them are not going to wash their face. He goes, okay, fine. You know what? One more chance. He's like, okay, fine. I'll give you one more chance. One more question. 2 burglars come down the chimney, and one whose face is clean, one whose face is dirty. Who's going to wash? He says, you just told me like none of them are going to wash their face. He says, how is it possible that 2 burglars come down the same chimney and one is face is clean and one face is dirty? You'll never get to study Talmud. Give it up. That's a Talmud. I mean, it's a joke, but it's very interesting that you have to take one side, and then the other side, maybe the other side, and maybe both of them are right, maybe both of them are wrong. You see, look at different perspectives, and you brought into this discussion of maybe the other perspective is correct, maybe the other perspective is right. Last time we tried to trace something to the original who said it and who's according to who. Today we're going to see a little different type of style of Gemara study, a different section of Gemara, and but again, it's going to give us back and forth different scenarios, and we'll see how that flows. Let's go to text number 1, Crystal, page 173. So he's talking about study of a Torah. Someone complains, they can't get it. He says, you need to work a little harder. Yagaiti, umatsasi. And what's interesting is the word matsati. Matsati means find. When you find a lost object, you're not actually, it goes beyond your effort. So you don't go out to try to find lost objects, right? You don't do that. If you find it, you find it, something that's beyond the norm. So Rabbi Yitzchak is saying when you put in a lot of effort, you're not just going to get what you, as much as you put in, but actually you're going to find something that's beyond what you put in. Matsaki, it's going to be a matzia, something that's beyond the norm. So we have to put in our effort, and there's going to be tremendous reward. As I said, yeah, the goal is not only to understand and to get the law and to get the mental understanding and the mental exercise, but also to engage in the thinking of God, to engage in the thinking of Torah, and to bond with the wisdom of God. Let's see text number 2. Right. Getting.
So that requiring much more than discovery ideas is the this ensures a consistent great one. I was saying it's not really
okay. Also a famous story. A young man is traveling in a train. He sees this older gentleman traveling as well. And he asks him, he sees he's wearing a watch and says, "What time is it?" The guy looks at him and says, "Don't bother me. I don't want to talk to you." "Sorry, what did I do? I just asked you the time." He says, "Let me tell you what I'm thinking." He says, "I'm going to tell you the time. You're going to ask me if I'm traveling to this and this town, and I will say yes. And we'll begin talking, and then I'll feel obligated to invite you to my house. And we're gonna have dinner, and I have an attractive daughter, and I want to marry her. And I don't want to marry my daughter to someone who doesn't have a watch. So instead of going through the whole dialogue, I'm going to tell you, don't bother me." No. So you're thinking ahead, what's going to be the next question and who is there? As I say, also in law school, the Jewish students have an edge up because they already study Talmud, and that's why you always want to get a Jewish lawyer. Try, because they have the Talmud logic of seeing things from a different perspective, seeing a fresh perspective. So maybe somewhere out there, but still, it's a perspective. Don't come and see. Exactly. Okay. Text number 3 is a mission review. I don't know if we want to go there again to discuss the Erev Pesach possibility, or if everybody had enough of that, of the Passover. What is the answer? The answers. So in that section, we actually have a final thing that we allow on Friday afternoon. You're allowed to eat until dark, but it's recommended not to eat too much before the meal. So you should have a good taste for a good appetite for Shabbos. But Passover, we're not supposed to eat a meal before the Seder, so that we should become to Seder. Everybody agrees that you shouldn't eat. Okay. No. So we're going to skip that. We're going to skip it because what? When to stop eating. He was still eating and eating. But it depends. it's a different perspective. Rav Huna says it only goes according to Rabbi Yossi. Rav Papa says if you go according to everybody. Rav Papa says maybe we could still try to make it fit. The Gemara rejects it, and we go back to Rav Huna, which means we follow Rabbi Yossi, which means you're allowed to eat, basically. Important stuff. But yeah. So let's skip again. We're going to go our section of the Gemara that I made you copies, and this comes from a section called Bava Mitzia. Bava Mitzia, and if you want to look just at a nice, this is a nice version of the Talmud of the Gemara. It's called Koren Steinsaltz. It has the Hebrew and American on one side, and it has the English on the other. And this copy that I gave you is actually a smaller version. There's bigger words also. There's another bigger one, and the copies are not so great. So the original has one. And what's nice about this, it has different pictures and it has different notes and halacha. It is a pretty good version of the Talmud. The section is called Bava Mitzia, which means it used to be one. To look at Bava Kama, Bava Mitzia, Bava Batra, there used to be one section called Nazikin, and it was too big, so they broke it up into three. The first section, second section, middle section, and last section. And that's the super tractate of Nazikin on page 179. Courts and claims of damages, loans, bailment, found items, and employment and contracts, property rights, zoning regulations, and real estate transactions. This is what the three sections of the three Bavas, they call them the three Bava. This one is the middle of the Bava. And I'll begin with a story, which I myself, can I give you these? That happened over here a couple of weeks ago, and it was an issue with hiring somebody. So we have a deli, and we want to have rye bread. We're buying our rye bread from New York, and sometimes we get it from locally. We wanted to try to make our own rye bread because it's such a, it's authentic. So a volunteer made some rye bread, gave us, and it tasted delicious. So we had a volunteer, but now we need somebody to really start producing it as for commercial, like for the whole deli. So I put an ad on Craigslist, and I had a few people respond. And one woman came, and she came in. I said, okay, we're going to test to see how your bread is. You're good. Everything. I want to see how you make bread. So come in this time. She came and she started making the bread, and she's supposed to leave it over for the next day to finish it up. In the end, she decided she's going to do it the same day. She's going to rush a little bit. And when the bread came out, it was semi-okay, but it didn't really work. It wasn't, she couldn't produce the bread. I said, fine, next week, come again. It was a fluke. Maybe you'll figure it out. She's a good baker, she says. So she said, I could do other things in the kitchen. I said, I'm not looking for anything else. I just want to have bread, and that's what's important to me, and that's what I want to do. Okay. So she was going to come back the next week. Then she sends me an email. You know what? I don't think it's for me. I don't want to do this. Good luck finding somebody else. Fine. So I interviewed someone else. And this woman comes and she says how she's a scientist and she understands how the bread works, but she's also a baker. She bakes a lot and so on. And we went through the process. And I told her, here's a recipe. You don't have to follow it. You can follow your own recipe. Okay. So she's going to come in at a certain time. She says, I live in Taos. I'm going to come at this time. I'm going to start making it, and then we're going to leave it until the next day, and we're going to bake it. I said, okay. I said, and again, do you need anything else? I can do other things. I'm like, no, I just need someone to make bread. She comes in and she starts making the bread. And the next day she's here. She has a couple of hours. I said, you know what? Besides rye, we also would like to change our challah recipe. She says, oh, I have a delicious challah recipe. It's amazing. I said, could you make the dough and we'll bake it tomorrow? When people come in, the volunteers come in, we'll make the bread. No problem. So she takes one day and she goes back up to towel. She comes back down. She makes the rye bread. And she made 4 loaves. They were hard like a rock. It was unedible, nothing. I couldn't do anything with it. It wasn't even like able to cut. She failed at making the rye bread. Okay. But then we tried to use her challah bread and also completely failed. She wasn't up to the task. She couldn't do it. Okay, so I'm not going to hire her, of course. Do I have to pay her for her time? She came all the way from Taos. She spent, 12 hours or whatever, 10 hours in and out and so on. What's my obligation to her? She failed to make the bread. I didn't.
She didn't fail to make the bread. She made the bread.
Yeah.
But back to your wife.
Well, it was not edible. There's nothing.
They don't pay for your expenses.
It's a job. You're saying it's a trial. No one said that you're getting paid if she could fit. If she made 4 nice loaves and they could use the loaves. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't know and then it failed. I'm not judging her about her skills or whatever. She said you have to try the recipe at home. Okay.
If you like the loaves, would you pay her just for the loaves or also include?
So that's a question. If you like the loaves, do you pay for the loaves? Do you pay for the time she put into the loaves? Well, that's also good. I get it. I don't think people pay for transportation. You don't pay someone by time. That's in general not acceptable. In general, you don't pay someone to come to the job to work. Okay. I'm not saying the answer. The answer was I'm not going to say what it was felt obligated or not. I felt that she needed the money. She looked like she was really desperate. I gave her money and more than she expected, and we parted ways. Everything was fine. But if I wouldn't have paid her, would she have any complaint to me? Was I obligated because she complained? So the Gemara is going to talk. This is what the Mishnah is going to talk about. Similar case, not exactly the same case, but maybe it is included in this case. And it's interesting how the Gemara had an actual situation where I would try to figure it out. Now, it could be that legal law is different than the Torah law, but it would be nice if we could find something in Jewish law that pertains to it, because now we're following the Torah law, even though sometimes they overlap, and it seems to be a logical thing. Am I obligated, not obligated? But if you follow the Jewish law within that context, now you're doing a mitzvah. In other words, if we have a dispute and we have to resolve a rent issue, which happens. So if 2 Jews have a dispute about rent, if they paid or didn't obligations, if they go to court, then it's not a mitzvah. They haven't fulfilled any mitzvah. They haven't experienced any Jewish ritual. If they go to the Jewish court and they resolve it with rabbinics, they've now done a mitzvah. The mitzvah to resolve disputes in a Jewish court. You're supposed to put your judgment before the Jewish court. So even a dispute between 2 people, if it's resolved in a Jewish court, it becomes a mitzvah. The Torah says you're not going to have disputes, resolve it. Now, not every time could you resolve it in a rabbinic court. Maybe one person is not going to follow it and becomes more complicated. They have to go to the rabbis allow them to go to civil court and so on. But if it could be resolved in a Jewish court, you're now doing a mitzvah. So let's see what the Gemara says. I can't judge my own judgments. I can. Oh, you go. Yeah. Saying if 2 people resolve, well, it's always in this mitzvah to resolve disputes. It's a mitzvah to resolve your disputes. Yes, but it's a special mitzvah. If you have a real thing, you have to go through a rabbinical court. A mitzvah and a half, exactly. Double mitzvah. Yeah, it says clearly the opening words about all these laws of torts and civil cases begins with the parsha. Ve'ela mishpatim asher tasim lefneim. These are the judgments you should put before them. Literally means that Moses should put it before the Jewish people, but also means you're supposed to go to court and resolve your disputes before Jewish courts. Now, and again, it doesn't necessarily go to court. It could go to mediation. It could be a discussion. You bring your issues to the third party, and we discuss it in a third party. Yeah, what happens all the time. I mean, you go to someone else, but there's a certain sense of now you've had an issue and you resolved it in a certain way. It becomes like a mitzvah also to resolve your disputes in Jewish court. Okay. Exactly. So every day, so go have arguments and resolve them. All right. So we'll start by, please pair up with somebody, 2 or 3 people. Let's see. You two, and you 3. Okay, Susan and Michelle, Becky and Jacqueline, you 2 guys, and study this. Take your time and study it, yes. But I want to just point out the way it works over here. It's not so clear in the copies, but there are some words that are bold and some words that are not bold. The words that are bold are translation of the Mishnah or the Talmud. The words that are not bold are the commentator's explanation, which you may find a different explanation somewhere else. It's not necessarily accurate as the Mishnah itself. The translation is a translation, and that's the Mishnah itself. The commentary is a commentator that explains it. Just giving you that openness, open the point. Another point is the beginning is the Mishnah, and the next page is the Gemara. And the Gemara is going to be based on the first 2 lines of the Mishnah, or first, in English, it's first 4 lines. So don't focus too much on the rest of the Mishnah. I would love for you to get to the Gemara and see if you could navigate a little bit the Gemara. Start with, go through the Mishnah itself, but quickly, and then go to the Gemara and try to see how the Gemara works. And let's see if you get it. And we're going to try to go through it together after that. Read it first and try to discuss it. Go ahead. Beautiful. In English, please.
One island workers, but they deceive each other. The parties have no claim of liability against it. They merely have the right of life. If one hired a donkey or to fetch fancy clothes, or wedding, funeral flutes, or workers to raise flags, or selling this, or any other task involving something that will be lost. If the task is not performed immediately, they cancel it.
Okay, so the first 2 seconds of the Mishnah, the second one says that if I make up with workers to come work for me, and it's something that's needed immediately, and they don't show up and they cancel, I could go use they owe me, they made a contract that I have to come and I have to hire people now, it's an emergency, so it's going to cost me more. They have to pay out of pocket for my loss.
You didn't pay that, you didn't pay the original people.
I didn't pay the original people. It's going to cost them because they made a commitment, and they have to pay the difference. What it's going to cost me now to find someone last minute. And the Mishnah has you could also okay. That's so the first thing is, or second thing is, that if there's an actual loss of money, then you have to compensate me, even though you never came, we never had a contract, but we had a contract and you reneged on the contract, you'll have to pay me. Which is interesting because usually we say whoever's in possession, if they're in the possession of the money, it's harder to extract money from somebody than to hold on to it. So they're in the possession, they canceled, whatever, that happens all the time, it's have to pay. But no, there's a responsibility. Now back, well, yeah, you had it many times. Okay, fine. Yes?
No, I was thinking, what if he said you cannot, you have to have immediately for wedding?
Right.
And for death.
Right.
And instead of going to tell somebody died again.
Right.
Maybe the wedding.
No. I mean, the wedding is happening and they canceled last minute. They didn't cancel a week before. They didn't give him time. They canceled. It means it's talking about something obviously it's talking about something that has to be done right away. So it becomes an urgent emergency. You planned it earlier. Right. You can't just change. Okay. Now it's not only about the wedding, it's anything like that. Okay. Okay. Good. So now there's other questions. What if there's emergencies? Okay, fine. Good, very good. There's a lot of this details of that.
All the workers, people involved in this, Jewish, follow rules. What if the workers are not Jewish?
Very good. So we're talking about Jewish workers, which is unusual, but it happens. You're right. You get a very good point. We're talking about Jewish people. Now, it could be also that there are people who are vulnerable and they're in your jurisdiction and you have to have responsibility. They have nowhere to complain. They're going to go back to the Jewish courts because they're in the community. They're sort of in the Jewish community, so they have to follow these rules. So you could also extend it maybe to non-Jews, but let's just say right now we're talking about Jewish people. They have a responsibility, they have an obligation, and there's a community and there's repercussions, and we know what the repercussions are. Let's say they don't pay at all. What's going to happen to them? No one's going to hire, whatever it is, there is repercussions. No.
Is there a Jewish court in this?
No.
Not the workers,
Whatever. It's a question of what obligations are. Now, we're going to focus on the beginning of it. We say that if there's a monetary loss, they have to pay for it. But what's the first line where it says they deceived each other and they only could complain? Okay. So first of all, the Gemara case, The Gemara doesn't elaborate what this complaint is about. What's the right to complain? But there is some grievances. There's no monetary, they don't have to pay. Obviously, someone deceived each other. They don't have to pay. But there's some sort of grievances, which maybe let's say that you're not supposed to hold a grudge, but they can hold a grudge. Or maybe the idea of the grievance is that a person should know, although you're not obligated, if you could pay them or if they could pay you back, there's no obligation, no monetary obligation, but there is a grievance. So the Gemara is going to ask, what case are we talking about? If there's no monetary loss, then there's no grievances or whatever. Okay. So you didn't come, but you could go find someone else. What's the case? If there is a monetary loss, they have to pay money. So when is it that there is a grievance, but there's no monetary compensation? They're not obligated to pay. Well, what kind of case? They use a term that they deceived each other. So if you see this, the simple case could be, I hire somebody, I tell you I'm going to pay you $400. At the end of the day, you say, I think I'm going to pay you $300. You take me to court. We had an agreement. You pay $400. So obviously, that's not what the Mishnah is talking about. If there's monetary loss, if I hired you for $400 and I'm giving you $300, you have a $100 claim on me, or a $1,000 claim, whatever it is. And the same is the opposite. If you say you're going to work for 5 hours and you work for 4 hours, there's a monetary loss. Or if you're going to say, hi, that's priceless, not monetary. So what case could there be that there's no monetary compensation, but there is a grievance? And if you look, let's see if you have the exercise 5.1. Yes. Right. That's exactly the question. What kind of case are we talking about? Is it intentional? Is it bad faith? Do they have monetary? They don't have monetary obligations. That's clear. There's no monetary obligations. There was something that went wrong. Somebody has been slighted. Somebody has been deceived, but they're not getting compensation. They can have complaints, but they can't have monetary. What case are we talking about? Okay. Let's go to page 182. Okay, where is that? So what case? I'm sorry. So the Gemara introduces, as have you seen, the Gemara says, if you look closely to the words, it doesn't say that the employer deceived the employee, the laborers, but they deceived each other. Could be the Mishnah is telling us that it's a discussion here, the deception is happening within the laborers. Maybe we could. Hitu, how would you say hitu? So yeah, they deceived each other. So we're some kind of deception, but it's not a two-party. There's a third party involved. That's going to give us a little bit easier understanding of what happened here, what went wrong, and why they don't have any monetary claims. So the Gemara introduces the concept. If you look closely at the words, it says they deceived each other. They didn't. Normally, you would say they retracted, chazru, and we don't say the word chazru. They didn't retract. They deceived, and it's talking about each other. So that the Gemara is going to introduce. We're talking about if there's a third party involved. One of the laborers. What's the story? The Gemara says, you know how it goes. The guy comes by, he wants you to do landscaping. I can do landscaping for this. And he goes to his friends and he gets his friends. He's one guy. It happens all the time, right? You hire one guy and he comes with three other. I have my friends and I can do it. Right? It happens. I understand. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the guy says, I have a landscaping job. He says, I could do it, but I have friends. I'm gonna go get my friends. And the guy who hires the other guys, he's playing a game over here. We're not exactly sure what the game is and why he's doing it, but something went wrong, either intentionally or unintentionally. So let's see what exercise, page 182. Okay, the balancing act. If you look at the balancing act, there's like 3 peaks over here. One is a legal claim, one is no right to complain, and we're trying to balance it that the ball should stay on top of the mountain. No legal claim, but a right to complain. We're trying to find a case where the person does not have a legal claim, but he does have a right to complain. Okay.
He's subcontracting it out.
Okay, and
And, well, the employer said, I want this man to do the job, so he hires him.
right,
But at the end of the day, he subcontracts it out.
right.
And he's not happy with the work, for instance. The work is kind of done, but it's sloppy, and so there is a grievance there because there was a level of expertise that was not achieved.
So what was the deception? Because the guy, so who has a complaint against the who?
Well, it seems that the employer, I mean, I don't know, this really wants to get the job done right to a level that has not been defined.
Okay, so why is that not, why can't he ask for money? And why
Well,
can't he?
because it's like any other thing. If I paint that wall back there and I have runs and drips, but the wall is painted.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, so you're saying, so you're getting in a case where he did the job, he didn't do the job as I expected. Okay, okay,
Was it outlined at all that, the expectation?
okay. That could be, well,
But they can, are you,
complaining.
yeah, are you angry at the person that you were like?
The person that you're complaining against is going to be the initial contract.
And the other way around,
What's that?
let's say, what about it sounds like the laborers have complaints. How would you say that the laborers,
Deceiving is about the subcontract.
and what if when would the laborers have complaints?
Well, if they didn't get paid.
Okay, but let's say but that's, they have a monetary claim. They could put a lien in your building.
You said there are no monetary.
Right, so when would they be able to complain without they obviously got paid. If they don't get paid, they have a real legal claim.
I don't think that, I think they're just, churning the employer.
No, but I'm saying, give me in a scenario where the laborers now have a complaint to someone else. You said in a scenario where the owner, where the employer has a complaint against the guy,
Okay,
his
so
agent. What about the other way around?
The original contractor could have shorted the subcontract.
He's shorted. What does it mean? Good, that's the limit. Tell me more,
Just didn't pay. But
Again, so they
that's
can't, they
not
don't,
the issue.
and 1 second, could they have a complaint? Could they have a legal monetary complaint against them?
Against the employer, no.
No, but do they have it on the agent?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, there's not enough detail.
But okay, no, but let's say, no, I'm taking your scenario. This is the Gemara is going to actually use that scenario, that case. He stiffed them. He didn't pay his things. But what did he make up with them? You're getting to what the Gemara is talking. Actually, the Gemara is going to say this case. He misled them. But what's misleading? Give me the little details and let's see if it works. He told them, I'm giving you $500 for the day.
That's still, you said there's no monetary loss.
Correct. So let's go when there is a monetary loss, when there's no complaint, and then we can find out when there's a complaint. Because the Gemara says they only have a complaint against each other. They can't collect any money.
But I'm thinking.
We have to find a case where they can't collect. So
I think it's this case, it's the way you described it. It's subcontractor versus contract.
okay, we'll see. Okay, go ahead.
It's important to realize there's a little bit different. There's different purposes usually. However, the
Okay. Not necessarily. Even today, you could have both scenarios. You could have both cases. You could have both ways. And the Gemara is going to say, correct. Correct. There's both ways. Now you're talking about more like subs. We're talking about not such an elaborate case where there's contracts. We're talking about people, laborers within themselves. The Talmud uses the term labor, not so much like a sub and a contractor. He gets his guys, and the guys, like you said, he walks away, and the guys are doing it now. Like, wait, I hired you, not the rest of the guys. But that's not the issue. The issue, like you said, they find out there's more money involved, and who's dealing with who, and who's. Okay, so but again, let's establish the question.
You know how much the owner decided to pay the first person he, hired, and then what that person said to the others,
Okay, so we have to find, so we have questions with a lot of scenarios. Let's find a case where this works. In other words, let's construct a case. If this in this case, this would be the law, and if this in this case, this will be the law. Let's start putting this thing aside. I'm saying this place we don't really know, but let's things that we do know.
If it falls, the bottom line is $500.
Right.
And then first thing, show them $300.
Right.
First thing they wire them $300.
Right.
And he goes away and do the shoveling.
Right.
Comes in and says, well, $500. The reason for that. So
So who they complaining against? Who's complaining against who?
There's no complaint.
There has to be a complaint. That's the Mishnah says you can have a complaint. So what? In other words, the Mishnah says the words.
Quality of work, but
That's the complaint.
that could be the only complaint.
And the other way around.
Give
In other words, it says the Mishnah also says that they can have complaints against the hire. Like what's their complaint? What are laborers' complaint?
Maybe the subcontractor took too much of the original amount that was paid. Maybe he took, maybe it was, maybe he took 200 and he gave 75 a piece to each of the four.
Okay.
So they're almost going
Good.
to their friend.
Okay.
To their friend.
Hiring is expecting a $500 work, and then the laborers that are hired only to give a $300 effort, and so the middleman is kind of the deceptive between the two parties. Both labor and employee have complaints.
To the middleman. Okay. By the way, these are all scenarios. The quality of the work is going to be mentioned over here. The guy is giving them less than he's getting. Although the mission. But I just want to mention the middleman is not the bad guy altogether because he got them some work and he got the guys. He's he's overseeing it and maybe he takes responsibility. Right.
I've been subcontracted.
Sometimes there's a way to do it. But again, there's no contract here because if it would have been a contract, then it would have been it's a verbal agreement, which happens all the time. We talk about you have to make not every single thing sit by that. You find put some shrubs in my garden, and how much could you do it for? And the guy goes in and he has other guys, and then they find out that he could have gotten more. Things happen. It's a very normal case that can happen every day, and we all were on both ends of it. We paid too much, we paid too little by contract. And by the way, the contracts don't actually work always. You have to have everything spelled out, but you forgot one point. I had all these windows put in, and then there's no hardware on the windows. I'm like, where's the hardware? Oh, we didn't order hardware. I'm like, wait, how could you have a window without handles? I'm like, no, it wasn't spelled out. Finished. I'm stuck without handles. Correct. Correct. And the mission is going to put out the same thing. What if they hired him to irrigate the land and it rained? Okay. Okay. Let's see. So again, which just to clarify, what the Talmud is, the Gemara is trying to find is that middle point where there's no monetary complaint, there's no monetary case, but there is a case to complain, and it's not a place where there's no complaint. Sometimes, like, what are you complaining about? I mean, everything is fine. Like, why even the complaint? The complaining, you also have to have a certain degree of, being upset, a certain degree of grievances. If the guy just, I'm upset because I could have got, come on. I mean, that's wrong. That's wrong in that part. So the employee, not always does he have they'll always have grievances. Well, I did a better job. Okay, we're not talking that's not right. But where do you have a grievance, but you're not going to get paid? Let's see what it is. Okay. So the Talmud answers, Claire, page 182.
Talmud balancing act.
Yeah,
The Gemara will now present a series of cases. Each case is an attempt by the Gemara to find a case that fits the mission's parameters, where the workers have the right to claim, but no legal claim. For each case, throw the ball where you think it belongs, either perfectly balancing on the peak, rolling down into the valley of legal claim, or into the other valley of no right.
Okay, what is the first case?
direct, you
Yeah, read that, yeah.
directed the agent, go ahead and hire workers for me. The agent proceeded to do so, but he deceived them.
What? Okay.
The wage is 3, but the agent said 4, and now the employer is only willing to pay 3.
So if that is the case, that he told them he only wanted to hire people for $300, let's say, and instead the guy offered them $400, what would be the case? Where do you think the ball belongs? If you went out and told someone that I'm hiring you for $400 and the guy came to work and the owner only wanted to pay 300 and you were told 300, what's the rule? What? It was agreed. The guy made up a deal with the people. He's going to give them 400, but the person who told him to hire told him only 300. Let's say that everything is fine, but they're now only arguing about what we right, and therefore what would be the ruling?
So.
We said there's a middleman. That's it. He would have to pay out of pocket. He would have to pay out of pocket. And the Gemara said, we had a specific Gemara even had let's see. Yeah, to make a difference. You hired people for 400. I don't care what the guy told you. The guy said 300. You went and paid someone for 400. You hired them for 400. You have to make up a difference. How did that happen? What?
I have no idea what you're talking.
If I ask you to get someone for $300, and you go out to the guy and you hire him for $400, what happens? And the guy who does the work, and then what happens? He comes to you, my money. Oh, the guy only said 300. What does he do? He takes it to court. He made it 400. You have to pay out of pocket.
That's a real claim.
That's a real claim. So where does the ball belong? Legal claim. Okay, so mistake over here. It should be down on the legal claim. They have a real claim if that is the case. Okay, so that can't be the case of the Mishnah where the guy offered more than the owner offered. That would be a real legal claim, not just a complaint, but an actual claim of extra 100 or whatever, 1. The middleman, the agent. The middleman has to pay out of pocket. Now, we have an actual brighta. If you look at your copies, it says, wait a second, let me just see something. Let me just see the way they have it. I don't know why they have it the other way. Okay, let's go to 183. That was just a sample. Let's go to case number 1 on page 183. Lawrence. Yeah.
What is the case? Let's say that the employer told the agent at 4 subs, but the agent went and told the workers at 3 subs.
Okay, now let's say the opposite. Let's start off with the other way around. He told them, get me guys for 400. And the guy got him for 300. When it comes to pay, they realized the guy was ready to pay 400. So what would be the case? Did they have a monetary claim? There's no monetary claim. Could they complain? So here's the Gemara said. Look at the Gemara answers. What the Gemara says. Number 1, what room?
Who is there complaint? That it accepted the agent's proposal.
Complain to who? What are you complaining about? So the Gemara originally. Okay, so is that a legal term? They could complain. I mean, of course, anybody could complain. But what's the complaint? You made up for $300, and that's what you got paid, and everything is good. So, like, okay, you would like to get more. Oh, so you're asking, what is this taroz? What is this complaint? It's not clear, but there's different explanations of what the complaint could be. Some say it means you're allowed to hold a grudge, or against, even though you're not allowed to hold a grudge another person, but here you're allowed to because it wasn't correct. It was something got wrong. It could also mean that although he doesn't owe them legally any funds, but since they're allowed to have a complaint, if he can, he should give them something to compensate to make them feel better. That's the meaning of complaint, but there's no official legal thing called complaint. It's a complaint, but it's fascinating. Gemara says that there has to have a reason to have a grievance. You can't just say, well, they're upset. No, it's fascinating. Gemara uses they accept it. There's nothing to talk. There's no complaints. What's the complaints about? You can whatever you want, but there's no complaint. Is also a stage.
Why? Because we didn't agree on something.
Oh no, it doesn't sound like there's a commission to the middleman. It doesn't sound. No, he's not taking a commission. He's not taking a commission. He's not taking a commission. It doesn't sound like it's. But the Gemara is not. Yeah.
The boss, the head, the one higher, he's being robbed $100. He has to be the people that are working.
Yeah.
$300 of work rather than regular, very, very professional.
Again, you're talking about the quality of the work. Now, it doesn't seem from the Gemara that we're talking in a case. The Gemara doesn't use the case where he takes a commission. The Gemara doesn't use it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I mean, the Gemara doesn't use that.
They went to the market, and in order to not to work the whole day running around looking for food, he said whatever he said just to get out of the shop. Like,
Fine. I'm just saying the Gemara. So the scenario the Gemara poses is not with a commission. He's paying them now. It's 300. You would complain to somebody who got you a job for less. What do you care? Whatever. They had to plant the trees, and they planted the trees, and then are they certified or not certified? You told them to go get laborers. We know what to do. So the guy can't complain, but the people also can't complain. The laborers also can't complain. What's the complaint? Like, what's the complaint? So you could have gotten more. Okay.
In this case, the agent makes some money out of it.
It doesn't seem to be that the mission is that the Gemara uses that as an explanation that the middleman is getting some money a cut. It doesn't seem to be. Yeah, no, he doesn't tell him cheaper. When it comes to paying, they realize that the guy was willing to pay more, but he didn't. It doesn't seem that there's a cut. That's not what the mission is saying. Now you could ask, what is the story with a cut? Now, if there's a cut, maybe someone could complain. Like, I don't know who would have, again, if it was me and the middleman was taking a cut, if the middleman was overseeing it, I would pay him that cut. That's his commission, and he got the guys. If it's hard to get the guys. Again, it's not, the Gemara doesn't use that term. I'm not saying.
Sort of going through this exercise, this sort of like a metaphor for other kind of issues that the Gemara tries to explain. I mean,
Very good.
We're spending a lot of time on this, just like we did.
Other Passover.
Okay. Why break the fast over Passover?
Okay, very good.
Right.
So 2 points. First of all, we're taking a section of this like this in the Gemara when there's like this, and just to like try to go through the process of the mental exercise to see how the Gemara thinks in many other ways. This could be a template for many other rules. This primarily, first of all, is a template for the actual rules of hiring and employment. It's actually halacha, and if you look at this page, you'll see, especially in the first page, it's interesting. This is the particular version of it, and he has over here. Again, the copy is not as great, but there's language. He calls post prefarin. What's the word prefarin? Is background about chalilim. What is the flutes for the funerals? Why the flutes at the funerals? Then he has notes to explain. And then he has the bottom line is halacha, the actual rule, how it's ruled in the code of Jewish law. And that is pretty awesome because you get through all the discussions, you want to know what the bottom line is. So on the next page, which is page 89, you have 4. Each scenario is going to have is actually halacha, 4 halachas on there. So this discussion actually ends up with 5 major rules in the Gemara. What's the relationship between employer and employee? How do you make sure you don't make the mistakes? What happens if it wasn't so clear? There's very specific rules about how behavior. Now, Sometimes you don't have to go to rule or whatever. You forgive the guy. You guy couldn't make it. It's not coming. It's snowing or whatever. What are you going to do about it? You can't pursue him. Fine. But if you really want to put it to the law and you want to say, well, no, you have an obligation. You made an obligation. You know, you're having a wedding and you have the photographer, and the photographer says, last minute, I'm not coming. And you're like, Code of Jewish law says that you have an obligation to come, and yeah, could you let? You're not asking me. You're asking me if I wanted you to go. No, I want you to do the photography of my wedding. I mean, like, so based on these laws, if you know the law, you could press it a little more. Like, no, you know, you don't want to. You want to be nice to the guy, but on the other hand, if the rule is that he has an obligation, so I don't want to be. I mean, I could be nice, but how nice should I be? How far should be a pushover? So these are guidelines and real case scenarios, and I think the most serious one of them is the one that the guy has to pay out of pocket. The rule is you have to pay out of pocket. If you hire someone for more than the person was supposed to pay, you pay out of pocket. That's a real rule. But it's not just. But again, the Gemara is going to have a few scenarios about that. Let's go. You're going to go. Oh, is this better, easier than tooth extraction, or
Much easier.
much easier than tooth extraction?
Not looking forward to the.
It's all the wisdom. It's all the wisdom that you.
In the grander sense of things, is the Gemara, is the Talmud the basis for the first record of Western law?
That's a very good question. I think so. I think a lot of Western law is based on the Jewish, they call it Judeo-Christian, I think, but it's a lot of it is based on Jewish. The Jews had a major system.
But they were first.
I think so, as we know it, and it's pretty. If you start comparing, it's pretty similar. You find things, okay, a little variances, but basically, the only interesting thing is that when you have Jewish law is based on the Torah, and it's when the Torah does have things to say about Jewish laws, sometimes it throws in like something that you wouldn't think of, and you're not comfortable with it, but you have to follow the Jewish law, and I mean the Torah law, and it actually makes it harder because you have a system you think it works in society, and all of a sudden the Torah says this is different. So
But why create that? It's tough.
it's tough, and you have to merge it. You can't just say, well, we're going to ignore that. I'm just going to go what makes sense. We have to follow that, and then you could put that law at extreme cases that doesn't always fit. You could do that, but you have to deal with it.
I thought Western law is based a lot on English law. Right, that's one, I'm just making that statement.
Okay.
Now, if Jews were discriminated against periodically throughout history, then why would Western civilization want to adopt the Jewish laws and sort of incorporate a lot of those into their own laws?
That's Jewish history, where we were persecuted, but they took the best stuff from us. It happens all the time. The people who are screaming about boycotting Israel have their cell phones, which have parts that are made in Israel, or technology that are made in Israel, all the time. They take the technology and then take the religions. They took the religion from us, and then they turned it against us. It's normal. That's not a question. I mean, the Jews have the best lawyers and the best doctors, and they spend time in law, and they try to make a society, and they borrowed it, and they took it over, and then they made it theirs, and then they said, like, what are you guys doing? They kicked the Jews out. Always happens all the time. And some people say, like, maybe it's because of that, because the Jews are so successful, so they make us like look bad, so we don't want them because it's but we like this stuff. So
outside Jewish people, customs, there's more law.
Yeah.
Law that's given. I wonder if it is the authority of the laws. You just say, we do this with. Oh, Jewish law seems to require the authority.
Well, there are other philosophers that created,
which right.
civilization needs.
My question is, And to me, the equivalent would have to be the origin of mine. So
Right.
I'm just trying to.
Well, the question really is the Gemara a closed book? Is it over? Or are they still adding to?
Okay, so that's a very, very good question. As far as customs, certain customs become law, and depends, like you said, according to authority. First, it was in individual groups made up had their ones in Israel, the ones in Babylon, and then they congealed it they had it set in the Talmud, and you can't really, and once it becomes authoritative, like we had last time, whether or not you can eat Friday afternoon. Should we make a rule of that or not? The answer is no, but you should, but no one's enforcing it. And the same thing over here. These become rules, and that becomes universal in Jewish law.
Lots of things as women, for example, Chinese people, when they were having like one child, it was a girl, after that, right? Or whatever, women who, in some of the, countries are, girls are,
Yeah, we don't want to say.
right, so all those kind of things.
So we have one of the most incredible things that we have in the Talmud is the women's rights when it comes to marriage. They were in the forefront. Judaism has all called ketubah, which enumerates all the obligations from the husband to the man, to the husband to the wife. It's a whole tractate. The rabbis established that they're going to have that the woman. It's not so easy to divorce. You have obligations, 10 obligations, whatever it is that the rabbis saw that women's rights were not being upheld, and they made specific rules about how to deal with it. It was different than the rest of society. As far as is a Talmud sealed, the Talmud is sealed, but then there's more discussions that continue. So you basically can't argue against the Talmud, but it's case that you could apply the cases in different cases, and then there's some sort of consensus. And then as time goes on, there's now called the Code of Jewish Law, which is accepted, and we're going to learn that about next week when it comes down to it. And then now we continue discussing a different technology and different things that didn't exist. Right. Batteries, right? Batteries, electric, Shabbos, a lot of cases that are coming in out. Surrogates, there's so many questions, and infertility and so on.
So if you don't have, it's the like the wedding or death.
What? You don't have one? Okay. First case, we said that the owner said he's giving 4. The guy comes and he gives him 3, and maybe that's why they could complain. And the Talmud rejects it and says, "What kind of complaint? The Mishnah has to be talking about something more substantial, yet not substantial enough. We want to find a case that's more substantial, more deceiving, but yet not as deceiving as monetary. Somewhere in the middle. Let's see. Another case. Case number 2, which we already mentioned earlier, but let's just say number 2. Ken, on page 184, right? Case number 2. You're reading, right? Oh, you're not reading. Okay, I'm sorry, Jacqueline. Okay. The employer says 3, the agent says 4. Let's put it this way. Do they have a right to complain? Yes. Do they have a legal claim? Okay. They have a legal claim. So where does the ball go? To the legal claim. It's not just a complaint to have a real legal claim. The right to complain, no legal claim, but no right to complain, or legal claim. So now this is now a legal claim. If someone said 4, but and they were told, the guy said, the owner said 3, and the guy said 4, they have to get 4. However, the Gemara is going to split this into 2 scenarios within this scenario. Case number 3.
What is the precise case? If they told them
If he said, "I'm responsible, I'm hiring you, come work for me, I'll pay you, my responsibility," because they ask him like, "Who's paying and who's the guy?" I'm responsible, I'll take care of you, right? I'll take care of you. What? Because this guy won't come. Because why would he do it? Either he forgot, or because he wanted to get his guys to come and he wants to get other jobs from the guy, right? The guy says, I'll get him for this and I'll make it. Everybody, we've all experienced such things. The guy said this thing and then that price and I came and I got and he's a big macher. He wants to get jobs. So he's telling guys before and he's going to figure it out. Tomorrow they're going to have to deal with it. He's going to be able to convince the guy to give him more money. It happens. It actually happens every day. The guy says the owner is ready to pay X amount, but the guy tells him, I'll get you some more. Don't worry, we'll make it work. It's going to be good. Responsibility, whatever. So now the guy has to pay up. What and how do we know this rule? Because we have a Bryce. Someone asked about the Bryces. This is the Bryce. The Brighton.
Or we were talking to Brighton, if one of his workers work in his own field, but directs him instead to expel the field, he must pay the wages in full. And if you then collect from the owner of the other field according to the amount of benefit he brought to that owner.
Okay, again, a scenario that can happen, not too difficult to happen. I'm gonna I need you to work at my place. What's the address? He gives you the address. He gave him the wrong address. Happens. Clean up the garbage, clean up the whole, do the landscaping. The guy comes, cleans up the whole landscaping. He says, "What do you do? Where were you?" He said, "Says, oh, I did it. What do you mean? That's not the right address. Here's the address. This is the address he gave me. He made a mistake and he gave the wrong address. Now, of course, the guy has to pay him. The guy went, he did the work, and he gets paid. What could he collect from the owner, from the guy who he actually did the work, that the work was done for? He could collect some. He could collect how much it's worth to them on a lower scale. Like, okay, I wasn't going to do my landscaping today, but I got $200 worth of landscaping. You should pay up $200 because you got landscaping. It was a mistake, but you should pay up. So he out of pocket, the guy has to pay the employee, the workers, right? So if a guy promises workers 400 and he can only collect 300, he has to pay the extra 100 or the one, or whatever. Okay, so that's case number. So again, the ball is now in the legal claim. So the Gemara has a scenario where we could see where they could have a complaint, but not a legal claim. And that is going to be case number 4, page 186. Michelle? You can take him to court. He says, okay, so it's correct, but you got work done. Good, so you could say, I have no benefit for this. But if he actually did get benefit, so you go to court, someone just comes, looks at it, praises it, and says, you did get benefit. I know you didn't want to do it, but eventually you're going to have to cut your weeds anyways, and it's right. So whatever the benefit, that benefit is, it's on a lower scale. A quarter or a half or a third, not full, if he actually doesn't have any benefit. But if someone comes and says, you did get benefit, you're gonna have to buy it anyway. I mean, you painted my whole sidewalk, but I don't want to. In fact, I want you to take off the paint. Fine, but if someone's gonna eventually have to take out the garbage, someone's gonna have to clean up the weeds, and so you got benefits, or someone had to. You talk about fields, if you will specifically speak about fields, plow the field. It's gonna be done. You're gonna be doing it eventually. So it's a varying thing, but he got. But we're talking about a field where people normally do this. This is the normal thing of doing it. Very good. Good. Okay. That is a problem, and that's yes. Not to say anything. Yes. It's a legal claim. It's a legal claim. He go to court and say, "Look, I know I made a mistake. Someone else went in. If the guy does it perpetually and he starts doing all your work, so that finally, someone gets stopped him. But yes, if you go down into someone and you start doing the work that they would have done, not like people, I'll take care of it, I'll make sure I'll do beautiful things, and I'm gonna, we have you, and all of a sudden, pay me. Like, wait, no, that's not what I meant. But if it's normal things and in the course of things has to be done, you could.
But the next neighbor says, okay, if it's a benefit, I am going to give you something. I mean, in other words,
The Gemara has it as a legal claim for lowest rate compensation. It's a rule. If someone goes inside, and if he himself goes into a field and starts planting and starts using it.
But that's not true.
Again,
it's not possible because the guy is getting paid twice for the same job.
Why?
Well, you just said that he's going to get paid from the house that did it. He did it, actual work. But the person who contracted him and gave him the wrong address was going to pay him too.
So if you look closely, the guy who hired him pays him. He collects, he has now a way he could collect from his friend. But now he doesn't, the guy who worked doesn't have to get paid from the person he worked for, the place he worked for, because he never contracted with him at all.
Right.
Now we're questioning, like, how does a guy go back and get something from, if he did work when I never asked for it? But, granted, a good question. But the Talmud halachically felt that's what's necessary. That's the best way to resolve these disputes. If it was common or not common, but it seems to be a theme throughout that if you go down and do some work for somebody that he benefits from, even if he didn't ask you for it, he has to pay you the lowest rate for that work.
And the guy who actually wanted work done at his house. So he didn't get the benefit. I mean, he didn't get the work done because he made.
Correct. Now he has to hire the guy again. The next day, come back into my field because he got to the wrong guy.
The neighbor, wouldn't he get a little extra from the neighbor?
Yeah, he collects back from the neighbor whose field was cleaned or his yard was taken care of. Now, if the neighbor says, I absolutely have no benefit in this, put it all back, then just discuss, put it all back, put it all,
So what about someone who fervently brought that?
Okay, fine. But it's hard. It's not easy to collect because you could say, I never really wanted it. I don't want it. Like a guy says, okay, you know what? The Talmud has a discussion also. Okay, you know what? I'm coming to, I don't want to pay you. I planted all these trees. I don't want to pay you because I never asked you to put these trees in. You came in your own. You thought it was very nice to put all these ferns. So the guy says, okay, I'm coming to take my trees. Could he say that? Could he say I could take my trees? Yeah. What? Because he's going to destroy this whole thing. And then could the guy say, you know what? Go take your trees back. You could say, there's a discussion in town about that. Okay, I don't want to get it because it's a little bit side. We're talking about the first case or the first part of it that he has to pay out of pocket because he promised him 4. So there's not only a grievance, but actual monetary thing. The next case. So here comes the case number 4, which the Gemara seems to deem that is the actual case of the result. No, I'm sorry, not finished. Okay, go on. Michelle, you read? Aha. So here, the guy says, come, I have a job for you, you guys, whatever, but the guy is going to pay you. So now he told him it's 400, and then he comes to the boss, and he says, here's the guys, work it out with you. And here was like sort of miscommunication. He's not saying, I'm paying you, the guy is paying you. They should have asked him, how much are you paying? Let's resolve this. Don't rely on the guy who said the guy is going to be the guy. So now already the responsibility now. So now we're like in the middle ground. The guy said 3, the other guy said 4. They didn't ask. How do we do this? So that's the first answer to the Mishnah to the Mishnah, and that where would the ball go? That point, where's the ball? Is the ball on no right to complain, the right to complain, or legal claim? Case number 4, where would that be? Where would the ball be? In case number 4? No legal claim, but a right to complain. Because he didn't take responsibility to pay them, and he shifted it to the owner, and therefore they don't have a legal claim, but they do have a right to complain. But the Gemara is not happy with that fully. The Gemara says, okay, that comes into what you asked about the quality of the work. I'm sorry, not the quality of the work, but about what's the normal rate going? What's the rate of payment? Let's take what's the rate that people pay for this? So let's see what case. No, I'm saying, are you ready? No, case number 5 AB. Okay, what would be the case if normally they're hired at 4, the going rate is at 4, and they were promised 4, or they were told they were going to get 4. What should they get? 4. So then that would be a legal claim, right? The ball goes on the legal claim. If the going rate is 3, what would be the answer? Where would they be? They would not have a right to complain because that's the normal rate. Okay, you had a fantasy. You're going to get, the guy told you you're going to get $400 for it or $4,000. It's a fantasy. Everybody else gets 3. Okay, you thought. Not a fantasy. Okay. So the Gemara asks, okay, the guy said 4. The original owner said 3. They were told 4, but If it's normally that they get 4, then they should get 4. And if it's normal, they get 3, then they have no complaint either. They should get 3, whatever's the normal. So whatever they said is not as important as what the fixed rate for this thing. What's the answer? Richard? Karen? Case number 6. And by the way, this is the Jewish law. That's halacha. Halacha is if you hire somebody and they were told that they would get 4, and you said you're going to get 3, but everybody else gets 4, you pay 4. That's the going rate. You can't get a 3. The guy, and by the way, it could be a scenario where the guy is looking around and trying to get a 3, he can't get it, and he can't get it. So he comes over to them and he says 4, and because he knows the guy wants his landscaping done, and again, and needs it today, whatever he wants the landscape. So he thought it's good. Okay, that's the issue. But his cell phone wasn't working when it happened. Correct. So he forgot to say that, by the way, I told the guys 4 because I couldn't find a baby 3. He didn't say it. Whatever. He sent them. He did himself come. Correct. These are real scenarios. You can't find the 3. You went to the 4. But if it's normally the price is 3, then the guy should get 3. It was a mistake, a miscommunication. They should get 3. If the price is 4, then they should get 4 because that's the normal price. We must be talking about a case where so it must be that it's not clear. The 3 and 4, some people get 3, some people get 4, and they were told 4, so they have a complaint. Even though the guy said, make a deal with the guy and finish it up, they didn't. And they said, well, so they complained to the middleman, like, why'd you tell us 4? We would have waited a few more hours and would have found someone who wanted for 4, who wanted to do it. Okay, so that's one answer. We're talking about a case where the guy said 4 and the owner said 3 and the middleman said 4, and they didn't communicate afterwards. And he said, the guy's going to pay you. He sent them to the house, and some people get 3, some people get 4, so they can't really have a legal claim, but they could have a grievance because they were told 4, and they would have. But it's interesting that the Talmud takes the case that the grievance is against the middleman, not to the owner.
The middleman is an employee of the
Owner, boss, right? What about it? He told him, go get me people. Is he a regular employee? Yeah. Right.
And so he said whatever he said, but eventually
because he told them the owner is going to pay you, so they have to talk it out and organize it with them. And they're complaining to him, why'd you tell us 4 when you know the guy's telling you said 3? What was that about? Okay. So he's but the Mishnah says,
or is he not working for the same company, working for, I have to talk to my, and I hope you will have to,
okay. Let's continue. It's 7. Sophie. So.
Oh, sure. An alternative. Landowners who can tell you that they're not offering us a rate of 4, but we're considering
We're talking about people who have their own fields, their own houses. They're not going to go rent it out for 3. They're only going to rent it out for 4. So you came to us and you told us for 4. As a side job, I'll take it on. But you should have known better than to ask us to go work for a guy for 3. You knew he wouldn't go. So that's what the Mishnah is talking about. Now, okay, so the Mishnah the Talmud is getting another case scenario where this would work. It's not rejecting the other case, by the way. The other case stands. That's the one option. And here's another case where this could be, which means here the Gemara is going to give us multiple cases where this could apply, where somebody, and the Gemara's, I guess, they're taking us through some cases that have maybe actually happened or some thought process. They're giving us a few different options, which this would work, that a person could have complaints, but no monetary claim. Number 8, 9. 2 parts of it. Crystal.
workers, but they tell the agent. Everyone's paid for four, and that's the cover, exactly work for you.
Okay. They say, yeah, well, you told us 4, so we put like Ken was saying, the quality is a much better quality of 4. We put more effort into it to make sure that everything went fine, and therefore, now they gave him 4 for the day, so it doesn't matter how many hours they put in apparently. So this 4, we put in more meticulous. We worked harder. We dug a little deeper. Whatever it is, we worked harder. We exerted ourselves because we knew we're getting 4. So in that case, what?
I mean, the word between people is the contract.
Right, correct. At this point, there's nothing else.
So they should, the contract, they should, either make up the difference or.
But he told them that he's not paying them. It's the other guy who's paying them.
But he never mentioned, he must have mentioned.
He did. He mentioned I have a job for you, a day job that's going to give you $400, and go there and talk to him and finalize. Like, he's responsible for your payment. So a little more savvy, they should have said, okay, I want to make, he sent us here and you're paying, what's the final price? And they didn't. So at some point they do have a claim. Some points they don't. They have a complaint, not a claim. And sometimes they can't even complain. So we're going to try and figure out which one belongs to where. And now, so he said, we worked so much harder because of the 4. Okay. So the Gemara asks, case number 8. Okay. So what are you saying? No, why don't we just
Why don't we just.
examine the work? Let's examine the work. They say they put in more effort, they made better work, which means the Gemara is saying, what is the Gemara saying?
Yeah, they did better work, they should get full amount.
Exactly. If they did better work, and it's obvious they did better work, they should get paid more. So now we have another rule that the case, if someone was hired for 4 and they thought they're going to be whatever, they thought they're going to be paid 4, and the guy only said 3, but their work is worth 4, you pay the full amount. If they could prove that this is actually more work, like you said, the quality is a better quality. It's not running. The paint is not running. You pay because we're more professionals. That's what the Gemara is going to answer. Well, not if it's. Well, what if they could prove it? What if they could prove it? This is a quality work. You weren't. This is a 4. Could you? If they could prove it,
Yeah.
then what would be the rule? You get paid 4. Yeah, there's 2. He said 3, but the guy was told 4. So you're sort of erring on their side because they were told 4. Okay, go on. What are you talking about? Berifka. What does Berifka mean? And you can't tell. I'll give you better dig signal or less. What's the deceit? What's the answer? Yeah, the ditch is straighter. It's not everything is out there. It's a quality work. They should get paid for the quality work. What's the answer? And therefore, so what's the bottom line? If the work is discernible and they can prove that they paid more, that they did a better job, they get paid more. But if not, no, they can't. They can complain, but they have a right to complain, but they don't have a right to claim money because we don't know if their work actually was better. It was a mistake. I had in mind the whole time 3, you had in mind 4. Some guy said 4, but he's out of the picture, and they could complain to the guy. Why'd you tell us 4 if it was 3? How the water get in there? Okay, so that's number 1 case. Another case. Case number 10.
An alternative suggestion. We are dealing with a case in which the employer stipulated a rate of 4, but the agent went ahead and offered 3.
That's the original case that we said. The guy offered 4. The agent said, I'll get it for cheaper for 3. So what's their complaint?
We argued earlier that the workers understood and accepted the stipulated wage, but they can now tell the agent, you cannot subscribe to the principle of do not withhold benefit from its possessor.
So the guy was ready to pay 4. Why'd you tell us 3? Yeah, you're now on his side. Okay, we're never gonna be we're never gonna be hired by you again. There's a dictum that says that you're supposed to give it to. So the Gemara says then they could have a complaint but not a claim. Case number 11, which we didn't have in our copies. Others say alternatively,
Tana
Tana
uses the term
Chazru in sense of hitu, they deceived. Actually, it's probably a little wrong. The term hitu, as conceived, that it's actually talking about not a third party, but going back to the owner and the laborers, and we could find a scenario where they could have a complaint, but not a actual monetary claim. What's it was taught?
or we were taught in the Barata. One hires workers, then they deceive the employer deceives them. The two parties have nothing more than the right to complain against each other. When is this true? When the workers never turned up. Conversely, if mule drivers showed up, did not find the grain they were meant to transport. If laborers showed up, found that the field they were hired to irrigate had already been irrigated, the one who hired them must pay their wages in full.
Oh, so here we have similar Braita, which is not exactly as the Mishnah, but a little more elaborate. And here there's a case where they have complaints and a place where they have actually monetary claim. If they never went, then they just could complain. You told me you're coming, and we had a deal, and you didn't come and didn't show up. Okay, didn't show up. Or if they showed up and he didn't work either. It doesn't say the other way around, but he canceled them. He canceled them before they come. Sorry, I'm not going to need you. Okay, but if they come and all of a sudden there's nothing to transport, where the boxes you all hired us to move, so you have to pay me because I came up and I brought my mules and my truck and what is that? No, the things that the trailer, the guys with the trailers. I have a trailer that I could bring my pickup truck plus the trailer, and I came the trailer and the pickup truck, and there's nothing yet to move, so you have to pay them. Okay. I don't know how to. I don't have it. Doesn't fit exactly the story. I'm just bringing out as a concept of miscommunication, not really understanding. Now I want to go quick. The whole discussion is only the Talmud of Babel, the Babylonian Talmud. The Jerusalem Talmud does not have all the discussion. It's very concise and very simple, very straightforward, and it should have been easier to read and should have been more straight. Like you have an original case that we had about Erev Pesach or the Eve of Pesach. We had a whole discussion in Gemara if it goes according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and so on. Look at text number 6. What does the Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud, say? On the eve of Passover, from the close to the time of reciting Mincha prayer, etc. What is a Mishnah? The Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda. That's the whole discussion. It follows, and actually, there's a discrepancy. In other words, there's a contradiction. The Mishnah, according to us, the Mishnah follows Rabbi Yossi, and according to the Talmud Yerushalmi, it follows Rabbi Yehuda. And the halacha is like the Jerusalem Talmud. I'm sorry, like the Babylonian Talmud. Babylonian Talmud. Why is that? Why is halacha like the Babylonian Talmud? Because even though it's difficult to understand and hard to get to, but you get to the underlying reasoning and deeper understanding of the case, rather than just saying it quickly and just giving you the final opinion. As it says, text number 8, quickly, Lawrence, you ready already? Are you ready? Jacqueline, quickly, text number 8. Page number 196.
I think of the complicated intellectual mind. Nevertheless, it is specifically only want to take the clues that can of the halacha far deeper than it can be.
Becky, number 9.
Process of the Jewish people will be elevated even greater than the spiritual if they experience the
I mean, so a very powerful point about the darkness before the light. The Jews, before they received the Torah on Mount Sinai, they became a nation. They went through the process of slavery in Egypt. They were foretold they're going to go through a process of slavery. Abraham had a covenant with God, and then they'll go out and become a nation and they'll get the Torah. So in order to get the Torah to be refined and become a nation, they have to go through the process of a slavery in Egypt. We are also going through a dark time, the whole exile, but we're not, and it's taking so much longer because the light that's going to come after this darkness is a much more powerful light. And it says, the Zohar says something fascinating, that in the Egypt, they have to work with chomer ubilveinim. They have to use with bricks and mortar and bricks. The mortar is called chomer, and the bricks are called leveinim. And the Zohar says, today we're also suffering with bricks and mortar. The mortar is called chomer for kal vachomer. There's a way of interpreting the Torah by looking at a simple case and a more difficult case. And as if it applies to the difficult case, how much more so it applies to the simple case, or the other way around, telling us it's called kal vachomer, the same word as mortar. And the Zohar says when you go through the process of doing kal vachomer, you're like making mortar and building these things in Egypt, the suffering in Egypt, because we're going to get to the light at the end. And leveinim is called libun hilcheta, whitening and clarifying the halacha. That process of effort and going through and finding and figuring is what's going to bring us to the ultimate light with the coming of Mashiach, which we are going to happen any day now. And if you text number, when later on you can check out a beautiful, fascinating story, Talmud, where the Talmud speaks about mice and weasels and fascinating different mice and different chametz and matzah. But again, as you said, it's a template for questions when you have scenarios and you're not sure how to deal. Now we brought up some questions like, what about this scenario? What about that scenario? We have the template. We have the Talmud. Then the discussion continues. What about this? Not exactly this case. What about this case? And there's a Tosfos, and there's other response and so on, and they continue elaborating on these cases and bringing out more refined. Let's